check out part 2 from my talk with Jake Dester from Saxophonetics, when we now start to play for each other and have a lot of fun talking about our different styles and if there's a difference between playing with or without subtone, and talking about phrasing in different styles. Come and join me and have fun with part 2. Talking about Charlie Parker, you just said that he was one of your main influences. Are there any different other saxophonists that influenced you a lot? Like, I mean, Charlie Parker, of course, I mean, for any alto player,
right,
like the one. So, but...
And I think, honestly, for any improviser or anyone who has a deep appreciation for music, I mean, he's the guy. That being said, there are a lot of saxophone players that I really got into. Johnny Hodges was like my favorite alto player for a long time. I was fortunate to go to a high school where we played some pretty hip repertoire in the school jazz band. And some of that stuff that we played was the Lincoln Center Duke Ellington scores.
Oh, yeah.
Listened to a lot of Johnny Hodges and tried to learn how to do that kind of stuff. It's really difficult, but it's beautiful. Yeah. I don't think it transcends in the same way that Charlie Parker does.
They all refer to Johnny Hodges, though, the early guys. I think also Charlie Parker mentioned Johnny Hodges as an influence, I believe. As I'm the European Paul Desmond idiom, if you want to say, you know, with my band Pure Desmond. I'm obviously in love with his music. Everybody wants to learn Take 5 from me, of course. And Take 5 is also it's important that you articulate it correctly, because it's not, you know, that wouldn't help. But what he's doing is, you know. There's a lot going on before any music actually happens. It's like this, you know. And the first 3 notes are almost not really there, but they still are in a way. Yeah, and Johnny Hodges, of course.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Nailed it.
Yeah, he's an opera singer on the saxophone, I think. My teacher said saxophone players always play like the singers of their time. And since Frank Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, and people like that were popular at those times, saxophonists would try to sing, to play like they sang, you know?
Yeah.
So I figured, okay, that would mean you should actually try to play like singers nowadays do. And when we did with Pure Desmond plays James Bond songs, our latest record, where we played obviously James Bond songs, and also the one that just came out by Billie Eilish at the time, it's 3 years ago. I tried to play saxophone like Billie Eilish sings, which is really a hard thing, because she actually, I mean, this is, you know.
Right. The microphone is a really important, the microphone and the production,
of course,
it's really important.
Sure. And I mean, of course, since it's Pure Desmond playing James Bond songs, I should try to match the sound of Paul Desmond with Billie Eilish's singing. And I mean, I think it worked out well, but I'll let choose other people about it. So, but check it out. I'm kind of proud of it.
I'm very curious about that. It's interesting you mentioned
to play some Johnny Hodges for me. Just a few notes.
I haven't studied Johnny Hodges since
it's just something
like 2011 or something.
Whatever.
I don't know. I don't have much Johnny Hodges in my bag right now, but I do remember transcribing that On the Sunny Side of the Street solo. And just that one bend.
Okay.
I feel like at this point I'm able to stylize in that way, but I don't have any exact replicas off the top of my head. Yeah, I wanted to make it maybe a list of cats that I've put some pretty good listening, some good study into. Johnny Hodges, Charlie Parker, Dexter Gordon, Sonny Stitt. I would say those comprise like the core of of the players that I've really focused on. There was a period where I was really studying Eric Dolphy.
Oh,
and
wow.
and his playing is insane. Like he's one of the most virtuosic instrumentalists like ever, regardless of instrument, regardless of time period.
His flute
And
playing is so amazing.
yeah, I think it took me like 8 weeks to learn 2 choruses of, what is the name of that tune? It was one that was made popular by Charlie Parker as an alto thing, If I Should Lose You.
Oh.
So there's an early recording of Dolphy playing If I Should Lose You. And it's just insane. And I was like, well, this is a standard. He's playing alto. I'll learn this for my jury for this semester. It was the hardest thing that I ever set out to do. But I love Eric Dolphy. I love listening to him play. I love his compositions. He's very far out, fully expressing his self and his individuality.
Definitely.
And Charlie Rouse.
New standard.
Yeah.
Charlie Rouse
Sorry,
with Thelonious Monk in Italy.
Charlie Rouse with Thelonious Monk. Jerry Mulligan. I've done considerable amount of study of his work. I have never really gotten into Lee Konitz. Although everybody's like, you sound like Lee Konitz. And I'm like, do I? I don't know.
No. I know you sound like Lee Konitz. You have other sources. I can hear that.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of Charlie Parker in your playing. I actually hear what you just said. I hear Sonny Stitt, I hear Charlie Parker. Dexter Gordon, I'm not so sure about, but I mean, my opinion.
In recent years, it's been like Parker all day. It's funny that you brought this up, but part of my overall mission is to bring jazz to a more public, more accessible audience. This is before the pandemic, but I had made a career out of playing on the trains in New York. And I learned very quickly that like people need to hear the songs they know. So we were talking about playing saxophone in the style of a contemporary singer. Like I was learning, how does Ariana Grande sing? How does Bruno Mars sing? How does Ed Sheeran sing?
Yeah.
And covering these songs, trying to be as on it as possible stylistically. And this is kind of a side note, but there was a period where I worked as a staff transcriber for this website called Smooth Jazz Backing Tracks. And they put out, he's a producer, I think his main instrument's guitar, but he makes these backing tracks based off of smooth jazz records. And then he recruited people to transcribe the lead part. This is when I got really good at transcribing because there was money on the table. And I was like, all right, well, if I can get this done by Thursday, I can, afford this and this and this. I was doing that. I was listening to a lot of smooth jazz. And so now all of the Kenny G, the smooth jazz mannerisms, that kind of stuff is very much in my bag. Kenny G isms, Playing for a mainstream audience, especially playing ballads, they may not know the tune. One tune that I've been playing in the subway recently is, there's like a handful of go-to ballads. One of them is Body and Soul, which I will just always play every day, no matter what. Everything Happens to Me.
I make a date for golf, and you can bet your life it rains.
Bewitched, Bothered and Bewildered. My Funny Valentine, people dig that one. If you put a... You make me smile with my heart. Like these sort of pop glissando kind of things and really poppy kind of turns. I don't know, Billie Eilish is kind of an exception to the rule as far as pop singers go. People like Ariana Grande, Bruno Mars, she's really, over the top kind of just pop bangers. That's cool stuff to study. I think it gives my playing a more like this is happening in the current time period kind of thing. Like I'm not trying to be nostalgic. I do draw a lot from early players, but I want to find situations where I can work more modern.
2023,
Yeah.
we just can't play only music from the 1950s or 60s, of course. I mean, it never is going to sound like that anyway. Because we have those influences, we have listened to Ariana Grande or Billie Eilish or Bruno Mars, and that affects our playing. I mean, it cannot not affect us. It's just not possible.
Yeah.
Does articulation actually affect the way you improvise?
Yeah. Depending on the context, a solo or a phrase might just be all articulation instead of playing a bunch of notes. And I especially noticed this going and playing sessions in the New York scene. There are people who obviously can just do all kinds of acrobatic, fast lines, and they've got everything under their fingers. So I try to, offer some kind of contrast because I'm not the most technically virtuosic player. I can hang in those situations, but I'm not like, I'm not doing all kinds of crazy patterns and stuff. And I think probably my background and my mindset is more vocal, more lyrical than technical. But I can go in and I can that kind of thing where you're basically using the saxophone to groove. I find it much easier to establish a groove and then build off of that groove than to try to make a line that I spent all this time like thinking about, assigning some sort of articulation to it.
Maceo Parker is also, I think that he's actually playing drums on the saxophone.
Absolutely.
It's like, I mean, this could be a drum fill.
Yeah.
This could be a drum fill and not a saxophone line, but he feels the rhythm stronger than the pitches, I think. Sometimes he has this thing during his solos where he just plays the same note over and over again and goes up half a step once again, and just with the drummer, the drummer and him, and it's like drum battle, actually.
Yeah. I think Dizzy Gillespie was quoted as saying something like he thought of the rhythm first and the line second. I don't think it's as common right now for jazz schools or cats that come out of a more regimented kind of education. We're so fixated on the pitches and the rhythms.
In schools, people learned chords all the time. What to play over what.
That's an extremely valuable skill set.
It is. The education stays there, and it's kind of boring, actually. What I'm most interested in at the moment is melodic development. That's what I'm focusing on now, and that's what I'm going to do on my channel in the next couple of months. Really focusing on how to develop something out of a little motif, how to make a motif tell a story without thinking about what to play over an altered chord or what to play over -7 and why is this so important, just the way the great jazz players of former times also obviously have thought about music, because they didn't think about 2-5-1 licks or blues licks or whatever. I think they just try to tell a story with their motifs. And motivic development is kind of a big secret, how to do it, I think it's also something that I think I should bring onto the table.
It's huge.
It is.
I mean, listen to Charlie Parker's phrasing.
Yeah.
To use him as an example, I had a classmate who, he always would say that Charlie Parker used happy birthday phrasing. He could introduce da-da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Like, is very good at introducing something and then expanding on it and then wrapping it up and on to the next thought.
Yeah, I understand.
And through
3 parts that always resolve into something. The third part is a resolution. It's like a little story with a start, a peak, and then the resolution at the end. Yeah. Oftentimes, Charlie Parker ends his solos with a similar phrase that he started with. There's really an arc going over the whole solo. My hero Paul Desmond also does that, or Kenny Garrett, who's my other hero. Talking about Paul Desmond, or talking about subtone playing now, do you think, is subtone playing also a way of articulation? And how does it affect articulation? I mean, is there a different sound playing with or playing without subtones? Because I would say it does. Talking about Take 5, where Paul Desmond obviously plays almost all the time he uses subtone playing, also very up high, which makes a special sound. You can't articulate the same way than you can without subtone playing, I would say, let me show you what I mean. For example, you know, if I play that soft with subtones even here, I can't use my tongue as hard as I can when I play louder. You know, Kenny Garrett always plays more like this. He's more in the, I would say, his sound is more up front. It's more there, you know. And Desmond's sound is more behind the curtain, kind of like, it doesn't really come out. It doesn't really give birth to it, you know. The sound is behind the, it's like, you know, kind of disclosed. And I have to articulate differently then. Would you agree that subtone playing affects the way you have to articulate, and that there are two different settings for articulation, one when you play with subtones and one when you play without?
I do agree.
But
subtone, well, there's kind of a but, and that is that in my playing, I don't use a lot of subtone. If I find myself, you know, in a more intimate situation, I mean, a smaller venue or closer to the audience or whatever it may be, if it's quiet, then that kind of affords you the option of subtone. Interesting. I haven't really thought about this much, but I think being in New York, playing outside, playing underground, playing in all these different contexts, and just being in the city where people are just busy, they don't care.
It's loud. It's so loud.
Everything is loud. So subtone isn't really a part of my, I don't even really think of it that much as a technique. And one thing that I really appreciate, and I'm going to keep talking about Charlie Parker as if I haven't enough, but I think Parker came up in a time when recording technology was really limited. And so subtone, I think, is something that really only became part of the language once microphones were sensitive and there was enough quantity of microphones that they could record, where like you could just record the saxophone in a quiet enough space with a high enough fidelity to actually capture those distinctions. And you could add compression and you can add gain and you can bring the saxophone and do a more comprehensive mix like we have in modern production now.
When you listen to Time Out, it's from 1959. It's not that new. It's a big difference, of course, to the 1930s when Charlie Parker was really on. There was a real great development in that period of time between the 30s and the 50s.
And Bird died, you know, Bird died in 1955. Time Out, Kind of Blue, these more advanced productions when they're applied to studio jazz recordings. I think Bird coming up in a situation where it's like one microphone in the center of the room, and you're broadcasting on radio, you don't know the quality of the person's radio at home. I think part of what dictated his very deliberate style, and especially articulation, you basically had like only so many options. You could accent the reed, you could attack the reed, you could ghost the reed, and those are different levels of volume in the line. And it's going to go through a crappy microphone, at least by today's standards, into a crappy radio receiver in some dude's garage or living room or whatever. And then it's going to come out and they're going to be hearing it from 5-10 feet away from the receiver, or they're in a car maybe. Bird, the genius he was, may or may not have been aware of this, but it seems like the technology of the time period did affect how much people were using subtone. And as microphones became more sensitive, as production became more advanced, you're able to capture like more of the colors of the saxophone. Now it's more of a thing. And I think living in New York where it's just bang, 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 like there's always something happening. There's like some rock band in another room that I can hear just guitar, you know? And this room is supposedly soundproof. There's like 2 walls, 2 doors, 2 floors. There's soundproof conditioning all around and I can still hear noise. There's just noise everywhere.
Yeah, I know.
At this point, being here, I don't think about subtone that much, but it is a major, you're shifting. It's almost like when you put an effect on a guitar. It just lends itself to different kinds of lines and different ideas. And as a music producer, one of the things that I love is just like, I'll find a new synth setting. What does that kind of inspire? I think saxophone, it's a very analog instrument, but we can find, it's almost like you're turning on the subtone pedal. And now, what does the instrument want to say? How do I innovate the different muscles of the tongue and all of this, the airstream and everything to express myself with this effect on?
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you, Jake, for all your insights and for all your great thoughts. And I'm hoping that we learn more from you. And I'm sure we are going to enjoy a lot more of your videos soon. Hope to see you soon and to talk more about all those interesting thoughts and ideas about how to create music nowadays and how to play this beautiful instrument.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
You're an amazing guy. I really dig your stuff. Let's do something together. I'm looking forward to playing with you a little bit.
All right, Lorenz.
See you.
See you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, of course.
That's it for now. I hope there was a lot of new information in for you and lots of fun and music to listen to. Our different versions of Johnny Hodges, for example. And yeah, I guess there's going to be more to come from Jake and me. And yeah, hope to see you soon on the next episode of Ask Me Now.